Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So new images from American Love Story have been released, so I thought today we would talk about them. Here she is walking in the streets of New York, wearing this black turtleneck, this black cropped at the ankle flare pant, going for that, again, very quintessential 90s minimalist aesthetic Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy was known for. I think they were trying to go for this image where, again, she's wearing something very similar, black loafers. And to be fair, this was also an outfit combination she would wear again and again for years to come. The black turtleneck, the crop pant, the loafer combination. Maybe she'd wear a pair of jeans or brown corduroys, but this was a very common outfit combination for her that she would wear every day, that she would wear while she was working at Calvin Klein behind the scenes. I think what gets talked about a lot are her more evening wear looks, but she did have a specific formula. She was very selective when it came to basics or her everyday pieces. Everything was very considered, very intentional. Outfits would be worn on repeat. Now, when it came to this bag, I was very curious. Now, it's hard to see from these images, but if I were to guess, it's something like a vintage Prada. It looks like they're going for vintage Prada. And if we just look at that reference photo or this image that perhaps they're referencing, here it actually looks like she's wearing a backpack. She was known for wearing Kate Spade backpacks. I can't tell based on the angle of this image. She also did wear Prada backpacks as well, but for American Love Story, they've given her this very like 90s looking north-south tote. Looks very Prada to me. Like these are bags that you can find like in many iterations on the pre-love market. I did find the responses to this image quite fascinating. Design and Culture by Ed says still not it. Some people heart emoji, fire emoji. Closet Beauty Editor states her hair was darker before she started dating John. Jay Fritz says she had cool blonde hair. This warm hair color isn't working. Someone's saying Paris Jackson. More so the actress kind of looks a little bit more like her than Carolyn Bessette, but I don't want to critique how the actress looks. It's more so what I want to comment is like the styling. Someone also says no signature red lip and Carolyn never wore mascara or eye makeup. It is true. She wore makeup in a very minimal, clean kind of way. You wouldn't see her wear glamorous eye makeup or mascara. I do think it's definitely a lot better than before, a lot better than the initial images. It's still not there yet. I think this is an impossible task. I recently just I started watching this last year, Ryan Murphy's Feud, the series about Truman Capote and the Swans. It's a very sensational series. I'm reminded of how I think sensational and quite over the top and dramatic his work is. He also famously did Glee, Nip Tuck. He did the series on Versace and Halston. And also worthwhile mentioning, for the purposes of this video, I listened to Gavin Newsom's podcast where he interviews Ryan Murphy and he talks about how he was taken aback by the criticism at first because while he's done series related to fashion like Halston and Versace, I think what is specific to Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy, it's not just her connection to the world of fashion and all of the amazing dresses she wore, but I think it's also how people just really loved her style. It wasn't that she wore a Birkin, but how she wore the Birkin. It being a 40, not a 35 that was showed. It being not all done up the way they showed it in that video. Also how she wore things like these everyday basics like shirts from the Gap or Levi's jeans. He did say in the podcast, quote, "I'm thankful for the criticism because if you're smart, you listen to critical voices and you say, okay, that's great and we fixed it. We rolled up our sleeves and we listened to people and corrected. And I like doing that." Also, we have some images of Naomi Watts who is going to be playing Jackie O. I really do like her as an actress. If I'm going to be honest, I don't see her as Jackie O. Again, maybe her acting is going to be so amazing that it will be believable. Again, she is also a character that I don't think a lot of people have been able to really totally capture. But again, maybe the acting is going to be so amazing. And to be fair to Sarah Pidgeon, maybe her acting is going to really bring this character to life. But again, to do this justice, like the fashion has to be it. Also noteworthy, there were these images of actress Dree Hemingway, and she's going to be playing Daryl Hannah. So this was JFK Jr.'s prior love interest. For this look here, they're going for something something that looks quite boho, looser, flowier. Personally, I'm not that familiar with her style, so I can't really comment on this as much, but she was in many ways, at least based on recounts and retellings of this period, she was a foil to Carolyn. She was a very famous actress. She was already in the limelight. Her style was a lot more glamorous, over the top, and she was also very much in the world of the Kennedys. Like, her stepfather was a big time donor to the Democrats versus Carolyn, who was very much in the New York fashion scene, fashion world. She was more so behind the scenes, and also just her style before dating John, it was extremely minimal. And JFK Jr. actually used the term ordinary person when describing Carolyn to his friends. Many wondered why her, why not a famous actress or supermodel or someone with political connections or media connections. Daryl Hannah had that. At the time, he was the most eligible bachelor, the equivalent of American royalty. People magazine described him as the sexiest man alive. But also as a Kennedy, he felt this immense pressure. Again, he was surrounded by a lot of people that were very politically motivated, politically calculated. Carolyn didn't have any of these motivations, so he was able to choose love over a politically calculated marriage. One thing I will say, I would suggest picking up Once Upon a Time by Elizabeth Beller. It's a beautiful book. It's thoughtfully written. It, I think, honors the story of Carolyn Bessette. Of course, there's that, very popular book, CBK by Sunita, Kumar, Nair, that came out. Great book for like the visuals, the interviews. And I always want to say there's some amazing Instagram accounts to follow. I'll link all of this down below. And I think what has happened over time, just looking at Carolyn's life and how she was portrayed by the media, by tabloids. Keep in mind, this was the 90s. This was the era where depictions of women in the 90s and their proximity to these powerful men were never kind. From Princess Diana to, if we're thinking about the United States, think about Monica Lewinsky, think about Anita Hill. The book Once Upon a Time brings that up. The kind of viciousness the media had towards these ordinary women, their proximity to very powerful men. The media was not very friendly to Carolyn, and what I think is so fascinating is, be it through these online fashion communities or these really great books, there was a wanting to remember her in a different light. A very different story about who she was countered a lot of the narratives of the media at the time, was able to be told. And I think part of the backlash and part of it stems from more than just some of these initial images. Yes, the outrage was justified, but I think it's deeper than that. This is a story that's incredibly rich, incredibly meaningful, yet it's like a story that could so easily be told from the wrong perspective, the media's perspective. And if you look at how Carolyn was covered at the time, she was often portrayed as very moody, difficult, cold, and icy. The paparazzi crafted this vision of her that was very distant, built on speculation and projection. Of course, she wasn't a saint. She was very much a human being, but reading interviews of people that knew her, that were in her inner circle, describe her as someone completely different. It's a completely different picture of someone that was very thoughtful, very principled. I also think very misunderstood. It's that disconnect that I think is the real tragedy. She never got a chance to shape her own narrative. It was taken from her, edited and flattened through this media lens that never really knew who she was. I really hope that Ryan Murphy tells the side of the story of her, that human side of her. But yes, that's my video for today. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.